by a rival, by a violent group of people called the Harkonnens. And the Harkonnens come upon them and in a brutal and vicious attack, wipe out almost everybody in the house of Atreides. And so Dune Part 1 ends with Paul and his mother, the only known survivors from that vicious attack, fleeing into the desert to seek refuge with the native people that are out there. They're called the Fremen. We just saw some of them in the clip there. Paul's hoping that he can join forces with them because they have a common enemy. The Harkonnens have oppressed them for many, many years. But Paul's arrival out there is also pretty complicated too, because the Fremen have long had some kind of prophecy that this outside world prophet or savior, they call him the Lisan al-Gaib, would come and free their people from oppression. And they feel like they see Paul having signs that he might be this outside world savior. And so part 2 is Paul wrestling with his identity. It's him trying to join forces with the Fremen, which one of the ways of the initiation process is to actually ride a sandworm. So check, he's done that. It's on the resume. But with this, he's also wrestling with whether he should live into this narrative. A narrative that he's not sure he actually believes, that he is this prophet, this savior that's come to free the people. But as we journey through them with this story, not all the Fremen buy into this prophecy. Some of them are actually really skeptical of it, and they're skeptical of Paul. And one of those is one of the main characters. Her name is Chani, played by Zendaya. And we're gonna hear about her skepticism. Let's watch.
What are you guys laughing about?
Don't bother.
You don't believe in all this?
No, we don't.
These are all Southern beliefs.
Southern beliefs?
Southern tribes believe a Messiah will come to deliver us from evil.
You don't believe in the Lisan al-Gaib?
We believe in Fremen.
Bilal Kaifa.
You want to control people? You tell them a Messiah will come. Then they'll wait for centuries.
So Chani's beliefs, what she expresses there, echo those of many throughout history who have said that religion is really a means of control. It's for weak-minded people, and that people in power can use it to control other people. And in the universe of Dune, Chani has good reasons for her skepticism. There's actually this mysterious group of people called the Bene Gesserit. In fact, I think we have a picture of them that we're gonna pop up on the screen. For some reason, this is all, it's a group of all women. I'm not really sure why, but these are just some gal pals out for an evening stroll. Not creepy at all. But actually, this group of people on the outside present themselves as religious leaders, but behind the scenes, we see that they're actually kind of puppet masters, where they have a lot of special skills and talents, and yet they use those special skills and talents to keep plans in order and make sure that they're always in power, and they're always kind of behind the scenes, making sure things are happening, including creating religious narratives that they don't actually believe, but they want to use in order to stay in power. And this is significant because Paul's mother is one of the Bene Gesserit. And so in the next scene that we're about to see, she's actually gonna try to perpetuate this narrative that Paul is this prophet. And the way she's gonna try to do that is by surviving a potentially deadly ritual that the Fremen have in order to perpetuate this narrative. Let's watch.
She's right! She's right! It's no miracle. My mother was trained to do that. Poison transmutation is something advanced Bene Gesserit can do. I'm not the Mahdi. I'm not here to lead. Nezi Hajega, Giftak. Let me fight beside you. That's all I'm asking.
Da kan je niet tekenen, maar kunnen is ook mee. Dat hij nezen, een kool, een naainak. Boven ik snet. Oh, kisla.
I actually find that scene fascinating because you've got the same event, but two vastly different perspectives and interpretations of what just went on. Isn't that kind of our world right now, too? You've got Stilgar. He's this guy that has the big beard. He's one of the true believers, the Fremen believers who's bought into the prophecy. He's portrayed as a noble guy throughout the movie, but he's also kind of naive, particularly with what you know about the Bene Gesserit. And you contrast that with Chani's character, someone who's very strong, but also kind of only believes in her own strength. I don't know if you're like me, but as I was watching that clip, I felt a tension inside too, because quite honestly, both perspectives make me feel uncomfortable. Like on the one hand, I admire Stilgar for his conviction. And yet, none of us want to be manipulated. Nobody wants to be naive. And when it comes to my own personal faith, like I have good evidence and good reason for why I believe. I don't want to just be, some smoke blown over me. Like I want to know that, hey, this is what I believe and it's grounded and it's real. And so that kind of made me uncomfortable. And yet on the other hand, Chani, while I'm inspired by her strength, I also know that, man, there's gotta be more than just like my own strength to get things done. And I don't think I'm alone with that. I mean, again, I think in our world today that's hungry for spirituality, most people believe that there is something greater than just our own strength and perspective, that there's a greater story to be shared. But with that, I also have seen too, when it comes to a Chani perspective, at least in my own life, how quickly I can go from skepticism to cynicism, to where I go from maybe some good questions and some challenges and some doubts to actually, if I'm not careful, not really believing in anything and almost moving towards inaction and pessimism, and I don't want that in my life. It's why in the movie, I'm actually really inspired ultimately by Chani's character, and we'll see more of this. Because while she has some good questions and good reason for her skepticism, she's still in the fight. She's actually still in the fight with Stilgar, which is an amazing observation too, that there's common ground around the common good. We've actually noticed this even as a church, that we've joined forces with people that aren't even sure if they believe what we believe, but there's common things that we can work towards. It's also, I'm glad that she's open in her as a character. We'll see this in a moment. And I want to stop for a moment to say this to those of us in the room too, that have good questions in our life, that are actually maybe even a little skeptical of this whole church thing. And I want to say, I'm inspired by you. Because the fact that you're here, whether you're in this room or watching online or engaging with this content in some way, that's a sign to me that you haven't let skepticism turn into cynicism, that you've stayed open and you're like, man, I wanna see what's out there. That's a beautiful perspective to have. And so as I'm inspired by Chani, she has good reasons for her skepticism, but as we'll see here in this next scene, she's actually open to Paul. She's open to him because of some of the traits he displays, particularly his humility when he goes about trying to learn the ways of the Fremen. Let's watch this next scene.
If you wanna fight with us, first thing you must learn to be one with the desert. So here is a tent and enough food. I want you to cross that small erg and come back. Travel by night. You know how to use a paracompass.
Yes. Well, anything else I should know?
Beside the worms and the Harkonnens, beware of the trapdoor spiders. Centipedes are very nasty. Not the big ones. They're harmless. But the little ones, you have to worry about. And don't ever ever listen to the Jinn?
The Jinn.
Jinn, desert spirits. They whisper at night. They can possess you. Really, be careful. They are demons. But it's true. Don't listen to them.
Soldala هيا كلا كيراشا استلقرزولوتو اشوها ما جيب شيء
ناس شيء روح على دقة كيف ترشم الناس يهود شيء روتشي نبراتش شوفتيه
Also same like Sadozia. Mina Ziodeji.
So watch out for those little centipedes. Just be careful for those ones. So Chani is way turned off to all the stuff the Bene Gesserit are selling, but she's open to Paul. Why? Because of his humility and his sincerity. Two traits that always draw us in. When you think of the people who have made the biggest impact in your life, I'm betting it's because they modeled those two traits. And 2,000 years ago, these were traits that were hallmarks of Jesus' ministry. Why people who had been so turned off to some of the things that were happening in religion at the time were drawn to him. In fact, we see this in the opening act for Jesus, that before Jesus came on the scene, God used a guy named John the Baptist to start a revivalist movement out in the wilderness of Israel. And the fact that he used him to start it out in the wilderness is significant. Because at the time, if someone was expecting God to speak in a new way or to do something major, they would have expected it to happen in the center of Jerusalem at the temple, because that was the main place, the centering space of God's activity. But the temple had become so corrupt, it had become so obsessed with power, so full of legalism, that God said, hey, I'm gonna start a movement, but it's not gonna be there, it's gonna be way out in the desert, in the wilderness, through John the Baptist. And so all these people start to flock to John the Baptist because he's saying something that's so unique and different than what they'd heard by the religious leaders at the time, that the religious leaders actually got curious. They're like, hey, what's all the ruckus about? And so they send some of these leaders out to go check out what's going on. And John sees them from a distance, and what he calls them, he says, you brood of vipers. That's in Matthew 3:7. You brood of vipers, not exactly a ringing endorsement of everything that was happening at the temple at the time. And the people who had been discounted by, who had been dismayed by the temple, were drawn to the message of John. And these were the people that formed the movement that started to rally around Jesus, because they were drawn to him for the exact same reasons. In fact, when Jesus entered onto the scene, his first act was that, as an adult in his ministry, is that he asked John to baptize him. An incredible act of humility for any leader, but particularly for those of us that believe Jesus is God, for God himself to enter on the scene and to have someone that he created baptize him is an incredible sign of humility. And then as Jesus began to teach, he taught with such sincerity, where people knew that he had no other agenda, that he was for them. And for them, he was for everybody, not just people that were in positions of power. He was for those people that had largely been counted out, or who were called unworthy, or didn't have a lot of social status, the poor, the marginalized, those that were kind of downtrodden. These are the ones that he taught that had incredible value and invited them into his ministry. And so he drew people in, and the crowd started to grow because of this humility and sincerity, which in our world is so rare. In fact, that's the thing that makes us draw in most of the time anyway, is when we see this kind of humility and sincerity. It's because that's not the way the world tends to work. It's almost like it goes against the grain of how most of society functions. And Jesus warned about this because as he is going about his ministry, he wanted his followers, including us, to know about this dangerous pull of power that can happen to any of us. And he talked about this in a key chapter in Mark chapter